Hey everybody, in this video we're going to be covering something called the Americana or the paintbrush submission. Now up till now, most of your training has been about getting into great position so that you can hold somebody down. But sometimes we need to make that person give up, right? They're still fighting, they're not giving up, they're continuing to be difficult, and we need to stop them. We need to say, hey look, your time's up here. Or we need to disable them so that they're unable to continue the fight. This submission is designed to attack the shoulder joint with you in either top mount or side control. For the test, you really only need to know it from top mount, but I'll also demonstrate it from side control so that you can see the finer details of doing that. So I'm going to have Mr. Jackson lay down right here. And I'm going to get a great top mount. Now, a great top mount means that my knees are down here, I'm tucking my feet in, and I'm sitting down on him. I'm not standing up tall where he can move. I'm really sitting down on him. Now from here, I'm going to take my hands and I'm going to go wrist and elbow. I'm going to lock my arms and use my body weight to drop him. One mistake that people tend to make here is they go here and they try to push with their arm muscles, and it just won't go. But if I can lock those arms and go body weight down, it makes a huge difference. Now, from here, you'll notice my feet are tucked underneath him. That's important because if I start to shift forward to do this lock here in just a second, and my hips come up, he can start to move and shrimp toward this side so that he's not going to get locked. So instead, what I have to do is I've got to lock my hip down, and I like to hook this foot on the opposite side from the arm that I'm locking. So if I'm locking his right arm, I'm going to hook his left foot. Boom, here. I'm going to drop my elbow right beside his ear. Once I'm down here, I'm holding over the side of his hand. I'm actually not gripping down here on the arm. I'm gripping kind of on the side of his hand, right here where his pinky joins his wrist. That's where I want to be. Also notice that I'm using a no thumb grip, the monkey grip here. Now from here, I'm going to take this hand, I'm going to slide it underneath his elbow. From here, I'm dropping my weight down, I'm extending his leg out. Now, I'm going to turn his hand into a paintbrush. That's why it's called a paintbrush, or the Americana. So from here, I'm going to make sure my wrists are straight. If they're bent like this, I'm giving him room. I'm going to make sure my wrists are nice and straight. His hand is pressed against the floor. I am now going to drag his arm back and lift his elbow. Eventually, I'll get to a point where his shoulder is locked right up in here, and he will tap. If I leave my body weight up here, you can see his arm has a lot more room to move. His hand will come off the floor. He can roll into this a little bit. It's not good. I've got to drop body weight down so it's a little bit more uncomfortable for him, but it isolates his shoulder more. If I forget to hook this, all he has to do is start shrimping and turning toward that arm, and eventually I'm going to lose this, and he may even be able to get out of my top mount position. I don't want that to happen. So that's one of the reasons that we do the hook on the leg, hips are down, I'm isolating this shoulder. I don't really care what he's doing with this other hand. He may be trying to punch me. He's not going to do it with any force that's going to hurt me, okay? So even if I'm down here and he's really trying to clobber me, right? Go ahead and clobber me, Mr. Jackson. Go ahead. Come on, hit me. Jackson, hit me. Right? He's hitting me, but it's not really doing any damage. Notice I've got my head tucked down against my hands here. Now, as soon as I start to lift this, it rotates his body away, and he doesn't want to do that anymore. You will occasionally find people who have really flexible shoulders, and this lock doesn't work on them. Not every lock works on every person, so be aware of that. Okay, let me show you real quick, one more time, how we get to this from our top mount, and then I'll show you our side control. So from here, whether I'm going to this side or this side, I'm going to go hands, straighten, body weight down. My elbow is going to drop right by his ear. Here, I'm grabbing right on the side of the pinky. I'm slipping underneath. If you're having trouble getting underneath here, sometimes you can go in by the wrist and then work your arm around. I'm hooking the opposite foot and dropping my body weight down. This forearm that goes underneath his elbow here. If I'm up here by his shoulder, it doesn't work. I want to be up here by his elbow. I want to rotate his hand flat, keeping it down on the floor. I'm sliding it back and lifting the elbow until I get a tap. If you were to do this really quickly, you would dislocate the shoulder and it would make all sorts of nasty poppy noises. You don't really want to do that. Now, here's how you get to this from side control. Say I'm in side control, we're fighting here. I've got a couple of options. A lot of times people will push on your neck from here, okay? And you can just take this hand and just drop it down, okay? You can even, from here, you can just drive it down with your chest, catch that elbow, and then pass around. That's another way to do it. One other way to do it is if you'll get in here and you're doing all this stuff, and he's trying to push your hands apart. He's working up here trying to get your hands to come open. Just go ahead and capture that hand here and then pop your elbow around. There are a ton of different ways to get to this position. Now, I want you to notice what my hips have done. I'm actually dropping my hips down so that I can keep his shoulders down. If I start to roll back like this, then he can sit up and shrimp out of that position. I don't want him to do that. So I'm dropping my hips back, really spreading out like a good sprawl here, but with my knees on the floor. Everything works the same from here to here to here. I'm straightening my wrist and I'm pulling back. One thing that has a tendency to happen, especially when you're first learning this, is you're like, oh, I gotta attack that arm and get way over here to try to attack the arm, and then they just bridge and roll you straight over toward their own arm. So you wanna be really careful about that. You wanna make sure that your weight is back to prevent that from happening. So guys, there is your Americana or your paintbrush lock. I hope that's helpful. There are a lot of fine details in there, so pay attention to the angle of your wrists, pay attention to the way you're grabbing, and how close that arm is to the body. The further it is from the body, the harder it is to get the lock. You want to have it nice and tight. All right, guys, thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next video.